deep heart shock and deep sorrow as to what happened in Australia, the attack on the Jewish community's Hanukkah by the Sea, which has killed at least 11 people and wounded very many others. We feel a deep solidarity with the community there, the whole Jewish community of Australia, with everybody affected. Our prayers are with, our thoughts are with all the families who are now bereaved so suddenly and so appallingly. And our prayers are with all the families who have someone wounded they're caring for, and all those traumatized and in deep shock. This resonates throughout the Jewish world and throughout the world, and I think it's important to say that the rhetoric of anti-Semitism, the rhetoric of hatred for Israel, which can so often be a disguise for straight anti-Semitism, carries a responsibility here, and we feel deep concern, and our hearts go out to the community. We'll find every way we can in expressing our solidarity. But if people would just stand, I need to get them on their phone. I'm going to say a refuah shlema prayer, because we have the names not of everybody, but of many of the wounded. And I'll say a prayer and include all who we're thinking about. And I'll ask Libby if you come up, and after that, we're going to sing Esther and I together. הוא יברך וירפא את כל הפצועים. May God to bless their ancestors, heal and bless all who've been wounded, which includes Kian Ziman, who was a member of the CST who was injured, Reuven Ben Manya, Chaya Moshka, Bat Shtel Nasara, Faivel Eliezer Ben Dov Rabela, Asan Ben Amelia, Yaakov Dov Ben Pnina, Yaakov Ben Etel, Moshe Jonathan Ben Zipporah, Elon Ben Shimshon, Yaakov Alevi Ben Miriam, Shoshana Bat Linet, and everyone else who's been injured. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimaleh Rachamim Alehem. May the Holy Blessed One be filled with mercy towards them, to send them complete healing amidst all who are affected and all who are wounded. V'nomar Amen. And if we sing together Sinai, which is a psalm of asking for God's help and God's protection, and also hope. Please join. May God, who's turned the lights of hope of the first night of Hanukkah for many into lights of morning, may God turn our sorrow back into our hope, and back into our courage, and back into the light that gives joy. Amen.
Amen. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. We are so pleased that so many of you are here to gather to celebrate and honour Rabbi Jonathan and his extraordinary contribution to MNLS and the wider community.
Before we begin, just a few words of housekeeping.
We will begin by hearing from Rabbi Jonathan himself, and then a number of people from the community and beyond will come to the stage to share their tributes. There will then be a short film, followed by words from the co-chairs. Rabbi Lara and Rabbi Yael will give a short Dvar Torah to lead us into the candle lighting that will be led by Jonathan and his family. After the formal part of the event, we invite you to help stack the chairs whilst refreshments are brought in. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Rabbi Jonathan to the stage.
Everything I say just amounts to one thing to say, which is thank you. I owe the people in this room, my family, my community, everything. Thanks, Nikki, my children, wife, family. I'm so moved that so many of you come here. I appreciate it, knowing, and you've had to put up with my being a rabbi and the hours and the interference that has caused. But now I'm focusing on the community. I would not have appointed me at the point when I was appointed. And this community has really shaped my life. It's given me endless opportunity. It's opened my heart. It's seared my mind. And I know I owe it everything. There hasn't been a morning where I've got up and said, I've got to do 8 hours of work today. And it's true if I say that I've done this sometimes with irritation and sometimes with frustration, but I've overall done this out of love. Love for Judaism, love for this community. I've never seriously, ever wanted to be anywhere else. And I owe this to my community. A big thank you. And whatever I show now in pictures, it's completely inadequate because I can't possibly include everybody. So please forgive me and know that there's endless people I appreciate in all kinds of ways. But I just have put together some pictures. And it starts with, I printed Michael and Susan, I think you're all here. You founded this community alongside others. You drew me in. Either your father's legacy has inspired us. I remember a book he gave me in which he inscribed, I feel left alone now. And I think the reason the mantle came to me was basically because there was nobody else at that time. And Michael and Susan, you encouraged me to study for the rabbinate, always, and I appreciate that. Leslie, that says it. He is the heart of our community. Leslie and Ronnie, I'll come to Ronnie very, very shortly. I can't remember exactly when this was taken, but you see Leslie's the smile that never, ever left him. I'll only say just 2 things. One is, we did a lot of weddings together, but the most memorable was when we were going in the wrong direction and he did a U-turn across the central reservation. So he kind of listened to my singing, but not my driving. The other is, the people who are really good to one also remembers when they say things which are critical. And I remember Leslie once commenting to me, and he said to me, the way you just said that, that's not the way to say things kindly. And that's really stayed with me. That's a teaching. And one takes that from people who give to one in such a heartfelt way and soothe. So, our family, it probably would be against the new Rabbinical Assembly's Code of Ethics to date someone you met in your own synagogue at Kiddush. It probably wouldn't have been allowed. I might even have been sued or lost my title to the job. Actually, Nikki said she wasn't in fact a member. But we met at Kiddush in our own shul, thanks to Tony and Debs, who were not well enough to be here. And we got married at the New London, but our celebration was here. And Nikki, 34 and a half years we've been married, and you've worked for me, stood by me, been part of this community in all kinds of ways, and our children all had their namings and all had their limits for here. And thank you. That's Mossy, that's you. And we could hear you because Nikki was getting you ready for your Pidyon Haben down in the basement of the old synagogue. And frankly, we could hear you screaming all the way upstairs. And that is Ronnie. That's all of us were a little bit younger. And that's part of our celebrations through this community. Our life has been entwined with this synagogue all the way. And Leslie again. People will remember that Leslie, who was already not well, ran with the Olympic torch down Hendon Lane. I don't remember, was it 200 yards they had? Lots of us were there to cheer him on. And there he held that torch. I'll imagine that it'll light the shamas that will light our Hanukkah candles. During the fundraising for our new building, the children decided they would have a pet hotel. I can't remember the maximum number of rabbits, but the maximum number at any one time of guinea pigs was 42. This is a lot of guinea pigs. One snake, no cats, no birds, that was a rule, and it raised £3,000 towards this building in a much loved way. By the way, beware of rabbits. I think it's that grey one where our neighbours who had to feed it when we were on holiday said they had to come in with boots on because it would nip out behind the furniture and get their ankles. This is you. I think this is you and the children. This was pre-Gun-Alon, in its early days, or pre-Gun-Alon. This is to show that you never know when you join this community in what role of responsibility you might be coaxed and end up. But it's a way for me to thank, I don't know, maybe it's 80 to 100 people maybe who've been chairs of the synagogue or in senior roles. It's a big responsibility which people have taken with such good grace and always endeavoured to do the very best for all of us. Unlike colleagues who've said sometimes, my community hasn't treated me well, it's us and me, it's them and us. I have never felt like that. Never. I have never felt a kind of me and them about the community. It's always been us, family. And I think very few rabbis can say that. I've been incredibly, incredibly lucky to have a community like this. I should also, there's a lot of animals to come. I'm sorry. And this is Gun-Alon, reading the Megillah here. And there's been lovely 30-something years of Gun-Alon. The market's changed, things have changed, but so many young people grew up through the gun, and it's something to be proud of and to remember, and who knows what the future will bring. But it's lovely to celebrate. In this community, I think the biggest age profile is the youngest in this community, which is quite something for a community which is about to celebrate its 51st birthday. Oh. So I wanted to phone Claire. I wanted to phone her into this, but she just said she's not home, and we'll relay it to her. But in Yom Kippur, we say in the Chol Ma'amini prayer, Shehu Kol Yachol. We're talking about God. God can do everything. Well, Claire was... she had an eye on the books, and she was a detail person, but she was a vision person too. And she had the Jewish knowledge. And to find all of that in an executive director of a synagogue, absolutely fantastic. And there were many years when it was kind of she and I said, you're basically, short of the title, you're a rabbi. We work very closely together, and it's a huge, huge, huge thank you. And we wish Refuah Shleima that all should go well for her. That's good. Yeah. I wanted to hear the shout out for her. And then others whom I haven't got pictures of, Rivka, who for many, many years were responsible for programming, and people I won't manage to name, and I just apologise for that, because nothing I say will be adequate to what I owe. There was a lot of fun as well. The gang of Shamashim, I'm assuming this was Purim, but the whiskey club, this could probably be any Shabbat. It appears to be in our new building, and that has always been a team with a good sense of fun. Jeffrey, you're here. I think you're one of the first. I'll never forget your son Charles's bar mitzvah on Parshat Melech. To line up the portion with the animals in the ark, and a family name called Paradise, took quite a lot of doing, and your event. And you took me aside beforehand. I told this story in the traditional service already. And you said you could say that we're not the kind of synagogue where people wear fur coats from real animals. So I did. And afterwards you came up to me saying, I always wanted that from the pulpit. My father-in-law's a furrier. Since then, I've learned not to listen to anything the congregants say. This is measuring the ground on which we're now standing. It was the time we put a tape round to see what the area would look like. And Sue, Ronnie, I can't say enough about you. I have to single one word. And that word is ne'eman, and it means faithful. It's the same root as amen, someone you rely on. Our synagogue has relied on you, possibly through the years more than anyone else. And I've learned being ne'eman because when Leslie wasn't well, you always visited. When your brothers have not been well, you said, well, I see them every day. Your father, you said, I remember him, Zichrono Livracha. You said, I did everything for him. The meaning of ne'eman is to be a faithful human being. You're faithful to your friends, you're faithful to your community, you're faithful to your Judaism, you're faithful to your God, and the fact that you're part of this community, I cannot express enough how much I appreciate you. This is colleagues. No, this is some years ago, before you were there. But I'm not going to name everybody. But Rabbi Chaim, we met for the first time, just as Nikki and I became engaged 35 years ago, in the cafe in the Jerusalem Theatre. You then came to England for 2 years. It's amazing how long 2 years can prove to be. I can't remember. It was Alex Splan, who was chairman of Ezra Masorti when you were appointed, said, he's worth his weight in gold. There's only one response to that. Gold isn't enough. More than that. And we've worked, we've worked so closely over so many years in so many places. And I think the fact that we're different has made us a great team. And that you're going to continue to be here is really important. And again, I can't thank you enough. And your learning has meant so much to all of us. Thank you. Enough of humans. So, we've had various book and how activities that have been in the shul. I've had several book launches here. Johnny Geller, Adrian was going to be here, he's actually ill and not able to be here. That book was probably more successful than anything I ever wrote about Judaism. And Ness and Mitzvah did 2 walks, which in between them, there's a portion of this building we owe that dog, because he walked around London 100 miles in a week, and then across Germany with me. We had one encounter with, we went past quite a fierce bulldog in the garden in some village in Germany, and Messi was getting interested, and I said, just remember, at the last round we lost to Germany 5-1. As I walked on past. He was a great companion. And there were some very interesting interviews. This actually was, people recognised who that is. You never know what positions people will go on talking about, who we asked to be speakers at Resorti dinner. So Martha, choose wisely for the next candidate. I think Jonathan Friedland had some words of guidance to say the other night, but I better not repeat them. But that's a kiss down. And tree planting. And again, family. Tomorrow's chair of the shul, and Michael, I see Rota, all the children who've been part of this community. I don't think that was the tree planting which resulted in the most unusual problem. Because after one of our tree plantings, I got a note from one of the participants saying, we believe that one of the other dogs present made our dog pregnant. Why I was considered responsible, I really never understood, but rabbinic work extends in all sorts of ways. I had to write to everybody, and it turned out it was a phantom pregnancy. So, all dogs seem to be okay. A different dimension which really matters, and the ecological, and if I go back a moment, the planting, eco-Judaism, the shul garden, the care for the earth, is part of what God wants of us, and really matters. And here, this is with the Quito, chair of the Congolese community in exile. He's been in this synagogue many times with some of his community. I'm not sure which of the women it is, but one of them's husband was imprisoned in Belgian Congo for a long time, and they feed prisoners poisoned food sometimes. She came with the Quito to our Seder, and she said, as God has freed you, God will, I pray with me that God will free him. I have to say, I was sure we would never see him alive. I was wrong. He's been in my home. And those connections, they really, really matter. And if I think today of the messages I've had from Christian and Muslim leaders, and the messages we need to give, it's important. This is our communal therapy hound at a very early stage of life. She was about 6 inches long, or a little bit more, and she's learned to do what everybody desires to do in synagogue: go to sleep. And I think I probably have to take a certain amount of the blame for the fact that there are probably more dogs per capita in this shul than in any other Jewish community ever and around the whole world. And animals. And this was Donkey Day. Apparently in Asif, when it was announced that there were going to be donkeys on site, in the 2 parshiot which mentioned donkeys in between them, somebody said, I wonder who's responsible for that. And Claire Mandel said, well, who do you think? I've not often been sent off to get a bag of carrots and ginger biscuits in a hurry. Sorry. Zoli and Azorian, and then moonshine, and then coffee, and all that they do for all hours, and the wit and the humour, a big hug, and a big thank you. A big birthday, Rabbi Zaharit, Rabbi Lara, Rabbi Yael, for me, all of us together. And I'm just going to say how wonderful it is to have colleagues like all of you. I'm going to say that more of that right at the end when I want to finish with a blessing. But huge, huge thank you. And I know that when I thought about retiring from the synagogue, and I'm very grateful to say the senior rabbi from Sorti Judaism, I thought I want to leave this community in a position of strength. I don't want to stay too long. I don't want to run it down. And to have you there, Rabbi Chaim, to have superb lay leadership and a superb professional team, couldn't dream for more. I really know that I owe this community everything that's shaped my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. We now move to the next part of the event where we'll hear from guests from across the community and beyond, representing different parts of Jonathan's world. Each will share how Jonathan has touched their lives. Thank you to all of them for managing to...
Rabbi Jonathan, I feel exceptionally privileged to have spent so many years alongside you, following your passions, your wisdom, your guidance, and even tears from me, welcoming Mossi, Libby, Kadia into what we jokingly call the Society for the Protection of Rabbis' Children. Still need protection. I still well remember your bar mitzvah, would you believe, in your Hellensley Avenue garden. You were already showing yourself to be a serious and thoughtful young man. I quietly asked my father whether he thought you might one day become a rabbi. He didn't express an opinion, but there was definitely a glimmer of hope in his eyes that I might well have caught from him. As you retire, we all reminisce. I especially do, to the joy of successfully bringing you to spiritually lead our community some 40 years ago. Your compassion, empathy, and vision have never rested. Through your teaching and your prolific writing, you've guided us gently forward, always towards the light. Thank you for your tireless dedication to this community and for your so valued personal friendship. May this next chapter bring you and Nikki continued strength to write, run marathons, pursue change in the world. Bless and be blessed. Bracha v'hatzlacha.
Thank you.
I first met Jonathan in 1987 when he was appointed Rabbi of New North London Synagogue. I was thrilled when he accepted the post, particularly as we needed someone to learn and deliver sermons. Up until that time, Ivor often would ask me to deliver a sermon when I arrived in shul, and I was not always prepared for that. During those early years, I got to know Jonathan better, and my respect and love for him grew. I soon realized we had come across a gem. At that time, my office was in Long Lane, and I shared it with Leslie Linden. Jonathan used to pop in regularly bringing lunch. He would always give a short shiur, followed by benching. After all, we did have a mazuman. Sometime later, Jonathan told me he had become engaged to Nikki, and he asked me if I would deliver the sermon on that Shabbat, introduce Nikki to the congregation, and announce their engagement. My connection with his family grew, and I officiated as the Kohen at Moses Pidyon Haben, which you see in and he asked me if I would deliver the sermon on that Shabbat, introduce Nikki to the congregation, announce the engagement. Sorry, I just read that. My connection with his family grew, and I officiated as the Kohen at Moses Pidyon Haben. We saw that as well. I taught Mossi his bar mitzvah portion, and he has widened his repertoire up to leading major services on Yom Kippur, which is no mean feat. I've always had a wonderful relationship with Jonathan's dogs, starting with Safi, then Mitzvah, and currently Nessie. Is she here?
She's here.
I will close by expressing my heartfelt thanks to Nikki, Mossy, Libby, Katya, and all the dogs for sharing Jonathan with us.
Rabbi Wittenberg, Jonathan, for over 40 years you've been my rabbi. Forgive me. I've watched as you've grown from a shy, uncertain rabbinical student into the rabbi by whom I measure all the others. Your humanity, your knowledge, your learning, your moral compass, and your courage in speaking out difficult truths at challenging times are attributes that I have treasured over the years. But my bond with you goes beyond my love and respect for you as my rabbi. Because I know how much you loved Leslie and how much he loved you. Working as your assistant gave him a sense of fulfillment in his professional life that he had never before experienced. And together, you were a fabulous team. I feel a deep sense of gratitude to you for making his working life so very happy. So even when you are no longer officially my rabbi, the shared love that we have for Leslie will always be something that will connect us. Thank you.
Hello. So indeed, I've known Jonathan since 1990, when I applied for a job at Ezra Masorti, and Jonathan was visiting Jerusalem, and they sent in the spy. And, the truth is, we've been friends ever since. And I think from the time I moved to London, many days have gone by that we haven't spoken to each other. And everything that's happened in our communities, we've shared and pondered and thought and worked out together. Very, very special times. One of the projects was the Geshe Teenage Center, which we set up together. Every year we took the children to Amsterdam. Won't share any stories. What happens in Amsterdam stays in Amsterdam. That's a rule. But one story from that, we used to have tefillah the morning at the beginning. And we'd go into the room, if it's a Catholic school, we took the cross off the wall, we'd do shachrit, put the cross back on the wall. And one day, we broke the cross. Jonathan and I, rest of the morning, were there fixing the cross, wondering whether close to a decade of rabbinical studies was worth it, and whether that was the purpose. In any case. But we once hosted joint Shabbat, Ezra Masorti and Minhag under Shabbat, and we designed a game as an activity on the Friday night, and it was on the history of Spanish Jewry. Now, I created a reasonable, fun, efficient game that certainly would have done the job. And then Jonathan came and completely redesigned it in a way that only took an extra 5 hours to prepare. And that's everything we need to know about Jonathan. He's never afraid of hard work. He has endless commitment to the community. He never settles for less than the best. Never compromises his values, has such an amazing sensitivity to people and their needs, and a willingness to go far beyond the call of duty, to make sure everyone's respected, everyone's tended to, and everything is done right. So we as a community have been fortunate to have Jonathan at its helm for the last 40 years. I have no doubt that Jonathan, you'll go on, you'll continue to thrive, and you'll continue to be an inspiration for all of us for many years to come. And thank you for your friendship. Thank you.
Working with Jonathan over the years has been a real privilege. I could tell you some of the more peculiar and amusing things that he's asked for help with, but I wanted to mention instead the things that he has done for me. I've never met anyone who is a more shining example of the lesson of Pirkei Avot, say little and do much. He's been a boss, a teacher, an educator, a friend. But more than that, Jonathan has taught me how to try and be a better person through his daily acts of kindness and thoughtfulness, which most of you probably don't know about or see. Quickly buying someone some fruit from the stall next to the Royal Free to take to a congregant while doing a hospital visit, or sending flowers to a new mum who has been struggling, or dropping everything to spend time with a child who has just lost a parent. These are a number of examples that have made me think, what can I do to show others I care about them at a difficult time? And I'm grateful to him that he has made me want to be a better person.
I've known Rabbi Jonathan since the earliest days of Asif in the late 90s, when we were mostly a bunch of single 20-somethings, and Jonathan frequently invited us all over for Shabbat meals, and even hosted country weekend retreats with Nikki and, at the time, their tiny children. Over the years, Jonathan had the wisdom and the foresight to support the development of Asif and ensure that we integrated into New North London. On a personal note, Jonathan supported me in my decision to go and study in Jerusalem, despite it being the midst of the Second Intifada. When I came back from Israel with Lahore, it was obvious that Jonathan would marry us. Since then, Lahore and I have been privileged to have a friendship with Nikki and Jonathan, based on our shared love of dogs and mountains. One summer in the Scottish Highlands, which I'm sure most people know is Nikki and Jonathan's annual holiday destination, Jonathan's walk happened to cross paths with my boys who were climbing a mountain called Sleop. When my boys eventually got back to the car hours later, they found Kit Kats left on the windscreen by Jonathan, who well knows the importance of chocolate when hiking. Jonathan, thank you for your support, the wisdom, the countless Shabbat meals, and the Kit Kats.
Rabbi Jonathan has been my rabbi for nearly my whole life. We joined the shul when I was 7 years old. I enjoyed learning with him in pre-bar mitzvah classes in the 1990s, starting to lead services with his support in the early 2000s, and attending pre-wedding classes in the early 2010s. One particularly special experience has been a small study group that Rabbi Jonathan has been running for a few old Noamdikim of around my vintage for the past 15 years or so, meeting every month or two. Members have come and gone, but there's been a core of about 6 or 7 of us, which has remained constant. Before the pandemic, Jonathan would meet us in a cafe in town so we could meet after work. After a couple of years, we settled at St Pancras Station, first at Belugo and then at Anquetia. We transferred to Zoom during the pandemic and then after that to Jonathan's home. He would come armed with various texts on different subjects for us to choose. After a populist election, there would be a piece on tyranny. We had a few months where we studied Peah, learning about the laws of leaving crops for the poor. This group has been so important in allowing us to experience ongoing Jewish learning through years where we have grown into adulthood and many of us have started families. Speaking for myself and for the group, we are so grateful that Jonathan took time out of a busy schedule for us. We've enjoyed it tremendously.
I feel incredibly grateful to have known Rabbi Jonathan through my conversion journey. I found an unexpected connection with him through our shared love of the natural world, something I never imagined would become part of my Jewish journey. I still smile thinking about the day he phoned and asked if I might write a short speech about horses for the Jewish Animal New Year. It was such a gentle and generous way of drawing me in, and it made me feel that even the newest and least knowledgeable within the community were valued, and that he had a way of making space for even those just at the beginning of their journey. His care for the natural world is a true expression of Tikkun Olam. His knowledge is extraordinary, and yet he shares it with such gentleness and humility that you always feel uplifted and never overwhelmed. His guidance has shaped not only my learning but also my value, and I will carry his influence with me always. I feel incredibly lucky to have the chance here to speak today and to say thank you to Rabbi Jonathan, and I very much look forward to many more Jewish Animal New Years, with or without more surprise force assignments.
I'm going to start with a question that I think explains quite a lot about Rabbi Jonathan. How many of you have been drawn into one of his projects that you never even knew was on your agenda? That was certainly true for me when in 2019, a simple request to facilitate a discussion somehow became a meeting of cross-communal rabbis interested in in environment and ecology. And you know what they say about herding a group of rabbis. 6 years later, I'm here as chair of Eco-Judaism, the charity founded by Jonathan, which now leads the UK Jewish community response into climate and the nature crisis. Jonathan has always maintained that environmental responsibility is a core Jewish obligation, rooted in Torah, compassion, and a profound love of the natural world. From the beginning, he's been Eco-Judaism's spiritual guide and passionate driver, shaping a movement that connects faith and community to practical action. His leadership has made Jewish environmental commitment visible and urgent, and very importantly, grounded in tradition. Jonathan's influence as the Jewish voice in environment and ecology extends far beyond this community. His interfaith leadership is already influencing national debate and international action in the climate. So much so that Eco-Judaism was invited to join the Faith and Environment Forum at COP30 this year, and we were the only Jewish organisation to do so since 2020. On a personal level, I won't forget Jonathan's unfailing generosity towards me as chair, always endorsing the value I might bring and quietly ignoring the many gaps in my knowledge. Through Jonathan, I've learned that protecting the earth is sacred work, and as he retires from New North London, his work with Eco-Judaism will continue through his thought leadership and ecology projects across traditions and faiths. Jonathan, I feel truly honoured to have worked with you on such an important project.
February 24th, 2022 was the morning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia. The day that changed everything for Ukrainians all over the world, including for me in my world. One of the very first people who reached out to me offering sympathy and comfort was Rabbi Jonathan. Our first meeting did not feel like two strangers, but immediately he made me feel like meeting with a dear friend. I was welcomed to the synagogue and given support and friendship. It has been my privilege to be welcomed for Jewish high holidays to Rabbi Jonathan's home. Rabbi Jonathan seemed to know just the right time to text me and call me when I needed a reassuring message. We have also been so grateful to Rabbi Jonathan for his attendance at our cathedral and contributions at our interfaith services for peace in Ukraine. Yes, I feel privileged to call him my teacher and my friend.
"11 years ago, when me and Aaron were 4 years old, our dad died of cancer. When my dad met Rabbi Jonathan, he admired his Jewish knowledge and kindness, and was one of the reasons why we joined the synagogue in 2014. In the 11 years since, we've had countless memories with him, like when he took us to visit Katya in Cambridge and Granny in Kent. So many Friday night Shabbat dinners over the years, and still cared for us, even during the picky eater phase when we only ate cheese. Meeting us during lockdown, when it was the most difficult time for Jewish life to continue, and giving us RSPB memberships. Rabbi Jonathan has helped us so much as well, especially after Papa died, which is a very difficult time for us. Also when he taught us laning for our bar mitzvah. He was one of the best teachers. Rabbi Jonathan and Nikki have become second grandparents to us. Despite all the things we have done over the years, they've made your life more difficult. Like smashing a watermelon in your kitchen to see what happens. Or vomiting in your car. That was it, wasn't it? And despite your very busy life, you have always made time for us, helping us with laning and other things. You have always approached us and the community with chesed, loving kindness. None of the things I've mentioned you had to do, but you did it for the Jewish values that you live by and represent. You've always been kind, you've always been a leader, you've always been a teacher, and you've inspired generations to continue and value Judaism and the Torah. We will forever be grateful for what you have done for us, and that you have adopted us as part of your family. We truly feel that we are part of your family, and for this, we feel very honored and privileged. Thank you. Thank you for everything.
I gaslit Mum into thinking we talked about this ages ago, but we didn't. I just threw it up last night. So I've had the privilege of growing up in the centre of the NLS community, and that has been hugely special. So nearing the age of 12 and the bat mitzvah time, I realised that I was in line to benefit and profit hugely from the loving community around us. So needless to say, I was cross, upset, sad and disappointed to learn that my parents had insisted all the bat mitzvah gifts go to charities. Even so, I'm proud to have been raised in a community that values tikkun olam, generosity and indiscriminate hospitality. Every time someone on a dating app used the romantic opener of, I think my parents know your dad, and then went on to ask me what it was like to be a rabbi's daughter, I was able to preach about my liberal and impressive dad and regale them the stories of tree planting, multi-faith meals and dog-friendly Shabbat lunches, the shul grounds being used for hedgehog rehabilitation, and learning which congregates brought the best offerings for a Friday night dinner. A stand-up memory for me is when Mitzvah died, which, like today, was the end of an era for NLS. In the hundreds of kind comments on the Facebook post, no one mentioned that the era was riddled with dangerous bites, and the mitzvah was more crocodile than colic. Perhaps people were wise enough to fear a libel claim if they put their true thoughts into writing, but even so, I was moved by the empathy of the congregation. Today, I want to honour and thank my dad, his commitment and passion as NLS senior rabbi, and to tell him how hugely proud I am of him, and always will be. But also, I want to thank the community who raised us to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with dogs.
The world is built through loving kindness.
There's something special about a service Ne'ilah called locking in a year that has brought us a lockdown. But I've also thought of it in terms of a special and deeper opening, an opening of our hearts, an opening of our thoughts. Shana Tova, a happy, good, worthwhile year for all of us in our community, all our friends, and please God for all the world.
So what was this community like then? And I have to say, slightly more interesting to me, what were you like then?
Oh, well. Thank you, John. That might be for others to say. And Hatikva, after all, it's our anthem. It's a really difficult world, and I don't think hope is about denial or illusion. But hope lies in the fact that Judaism teaches we're made in the image of God with the capacity to make choices. We're given a heart that's sensitive, a soul that's responsive, a conscience that knows right from wrong, and the ability to act. And empowering people, encouraging people to do what is right and what is good in whatever sphere of influence they have, that is the basis of active hope, and that's certainly is part of the
I, as co-chairs, stand here on behalf of Council. We are standing on the shoulders of many chairs who have stood here before us to thank our dear Rabbi Jonathan for 40 years of dedicated and tireless service to our community. There can surely be no better Hag than Hanukkah to thank you for everything that you have done for the shawl over 40 years. The lights of Hanukkah reflect the light you have brought to this community. The story of Hanukkah is a story of hope and dedication. The light of faith that our founders placed in an aspiring young rabbi all those decades ago has multiplied many times over. The faith and dedication you have put in us has been a light that has grown over the decades. You have been, as the psalmists say, a candle by our feet and a light upon the path, guiding us to care about our Judaism and each other and the world around us. No leadership position is easy, and leading Jews is harder still. And spiritual leadership could be the hardest of them all. Listening to Rabbi Jonathan only this week speaking about spiritual and moral leadership in the public square gave us an insight into the thought and care that goes into every public word. How much more so for what he says within the synagogue. But of course, you don't enter the rabbinate for an easy ride. There's a reason that Jewish parents used to push their children into other, easier professions, such as doctors and lawyers and accountants. But being Jewish is not about taking the easy path or seeking a quick return on your buck. Judaism is a faith for those who seek to change the world, writes Rabbi Jonathan Sanders. Judaism is about the world the way it ought to be. To be a Jew is to seek a difference, to change lives for the better, to heal. We cannot think of a better description for Rabbi Jonathan.
Jonathan, you lead us understanding the issues of the day, giving us a Jewish response and encouraging us to pray, in the words of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, with our hands and feet, making a real difference in the world. We have had the privilege of listening to decades of your sermons, and when you stand to speak, there is often a hush of anticipation. There are times when we have all leant forwards in our seats to hear the words of wisdom that seem to flow effortlessly from you, that help shed light on how we understand the world. And as you speak, we will feel a little more inspiration, a little more understood, and more understanding about what still needs to be done in the world. community, we have faced our own challenges and moments of darkness over the decades. Our community may not always be as harmonious as we hope, and your faith in us must have been truly tested at times. But just like the Maccabees, you kept faith with us, and here we are, strong and unwavering in our love for you and for our community. These struggles will stand you in good stead as your focus shifts to your role as Senior Rabbi of Masorti Judaism. After the joy of looking after one community, why not take on many more? And alongside the struggle to change us and the world for the better, to carry our troubles and woes, there is also thankfully your sense of humour, that little chuckle and a cheeky joke or a shot of whiskey, and we realise with relief that our rabbi is not a prophet, but deeply human too.
Behind every great rabbi, as the saying goes, is a heroic rabbinic family. Nikki, Mossi, Libby and Katia. I'm reminded of comments that the previous Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, made about the relationship between a retiring rabbi and his wife. Apart from mentioning that you should always think twice before marrying a rabbi, Nikki, we're truly and very grateful he didn't. Or maybe he did. Their words were prescient in describing well how we see you both. Theirs has been the kind of partnership in which the qualities of each complement the other. The personality of each enhances the other, and the love of each strengthens the other. It's a pleasure to have so many of your extended family here, and perhaps no coincidence that this is the week of the yahrzeit of your first mother, Leora. As a community, we have welcomed, enjoyed, and been enriched by the wider Wittenberg family, Mossi, Liddy and Katia. Thank you for being part of the Solomon, Wittenberg and the NLS families. Thank you for leading services, singing, teaching, blowing the shofar, making Havdalah, and everything in between. As a community, we know the challenges of having a rabbi in the family. So for this, we are forever in your debt. Thank you.
We are excited for your next chapter, deepening your work as Senior Rabbi of Masorti Judaism, building on your environmental, humanitarian and interfaith work, and offering your light to so many others. We will always be grateful to you, Rabbi Jonathan, for your endless support and wisdom. In the second edition of your book, 3 Pillars of Faith, you write that New North London has been your spiritual home for 40 years. It will always be so. We are honoured now to call you Rabbi Emeritus, a title of high distinction that enables us to continue to show our respect for your rabbinic and spiritual authority, that honours your long and immense service to us and keeps the strong connection. If this were a best friend speech at a bar mitzvah, which it almost is, we would now ask you to come up and collect your gift. But as the beautiful garden is too heavy to carry, we will just let you know that there will be such a garden, landscape just outside the shul, where your 2 favourite things, people and wildlife, can commune in a contemplative, natural space. We will also be gifting you Torah mantle scrolls and an ark for your personal Sifrei Torah at home.
In a moment, we're going to transition to lighting Hanukkah candles for the first night of Hanukkah. And Rabbi Lara has written a beautiful Dvar Torah to stitch that moment together with this moment for Rabbi Jonathan and our community. But first, I just wanted to reflect and elevate the words that Rabbi Jonathan beautifully shared at the start of this event, sharing concern and compassion for the Jewish community in Sydney. I don't think I have any more to add, but just to notice and reflect how that moment and so many here have really exemplified Rabbi Jonathan's leadership And really two core things that I think you've mentored and modeled for me and Laura in particular. First, the value of that we as Jews are intertwined with one another irrevocably, and we are constantly mindful of the ways that our experiences and those of Jews and really human beings across the world are inextricably connected. And the second being that you've never shied away from emotional complexity and nuance. In your pastoral work, your communal work, when it comes to halakha and decision making, you show this incredible capacity to contain all things, to contain joy and sadness, to contain hope and grief. And we feel that in this room today, reflecting on our future as a community and everything that you've gifted us. So thank you for teaching us those lessons and so many more, even in just the 2.5 years we've been able to learn with you and friends.
As Rabbi Yael just said, in just a moment, Rabbi Jonathan and his family are going to lead us in candlelighting for the first night of Hanukkah. And so I wanted to speak for a moment about the connections between Hanukkah and this moment of transition for our community. In the Gemara, Rabbah says, Ner Hanukkah menicho al petach hasamuch l'reshut harabim. The Hanukkah candles, we should always put them at the door that faces out towards the public thoroughfare or East End Road. And we might ask, what is the connection between this custom of lighting at the doors to our homes, more common in Israel than it is in the diaspora? And so what's the connection between the Petach, the doorway, and the Hanukkah, lighting the Hanukkah lights? Now, the obvious answer is that in the time of the Talmud, that would have been the easiest place to put the Hanukkah so people could see it, just as today we put the Hanukkah at the window. But there's something else about doorways, which is that at a moment of transition, it's particularly important to do Pirsume Nisa, publicizing miracles. Rabbanit Atar Lindenbaum says that sometimes standing at a doorway can be a bit uncomfortable. She says, it's not uncommon to find people lingering in doorways, caught up in conversation with one another, almost unsure if they are ready to transition from one space to another. And we might know this as the Jewish goodbye, when you're finishing a Shabbos meal, and you've eaten, and you've had dessert, and then as people are putting on their shoes, we linger, and there's a bit of a wistful feeling as we're not quite ready for the evening to end. And I think I'm not alone in feeling that I want to linger a little bit at the doorway, that I need a bit of a Jewish goodbye. And I think many of us in the room feel that way. Rabbi Jonathan, you're at a threshold right now between being our senior rabbi and stepping into your new role as Rabbi Emeritus and all the projects that we've talked about that you have planned. And it strikes me that there's one figure in our tradition who is particularly known for his relationship with doorways, and that is Avraham Avinu. At the start of Parshat Vayera, we read, "V'hu yoshev petach ha'ochel kechom hayom." Avraham is standing at the entrance to his tent at the heat of the day. And there's a famous midrash which teaches that Avraham sat specifically at the doorway because he wanted to do acts of chesed to invite people inside his home, particularly on a hot day when they were suffering and would be thirsty and needing some respite. And how much this resembles Rabbi Jonathan. I know so many of us have had the experience of being welcomed into Nikki and Jonathan's home, and of course first by Nessie bounding to the door. And also so many congregants have experienced, particularly at times of loss and sickness, a knock on their door. And Rabbi Jonathan standing there saying, "I picked you some vegetables," or "I made you some freshly squeezed apple juice." And we learn from Avraham Avinu that doorways are sacred because they're places of change. Places where we feel that liminal space and the difference between here and there, what was and what will be. And it's because of that sacredness which can be difficult, that perhaps our rabbis in the Gemara said we need at the doorway, at the Petach, to do Pirsumei Nisa and to recognize miracles. And I'm fairly new to this community, as Rabbi Yael, but it strikes us that it's nothing short of miraculous, all that New York London has accomplished in the last 40 years, Rabbi Jonathan with you at the helm. All of the Torah that has been learned, the beautiful relationships that have been made, the justice work, the spirited tefillah, and this community. And on a personal note, I feel it's a personal miracle in my own life to have had the opportunity, even for a short time, to work, Rabbi Jonathan, with you as a mentor. And I feel excited to continue that work together as you shift into your role of Rabbi Emeritus. And now, Rabbi Yael is going to invite, sorry, I'll try not to knock that over. Invite your family to come up and light those candles.
People may be pleased to know that the vote has come down in favour of the first verse of Ma'al Tzur.
אשר קידשנו ומצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של חנוכה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. הנרות הללו אנחנו מדליקים על הניסים ועל התשועות ועל הנפלאות שעשית לאבותינו על ידי כהניך הקדושים בכל 8 ימי חנוכה. הנרות הללו קודש להשתמש בהם, ולראות בלבד, כדי להודות לשמך הגדול, הניסך ועל ישועתך, ועל נפלאותיך.
And while people are standing, I haven't quite grown out of wanting the last word. Just a huge, huge thank you. But I also wanted to conclude with a blessing. And the classic blessing has the 3 parts to it. And I wanted to say to all the leaders of our community, professional or lay, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. And to be a shomer means to be one who keeps in faith, who looks after, who nurtures the trust placed in them. And you do that with such heart. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. And I wanted to say to my colleagues, Chaim's there, the other rabbis around the room, but I'm particularly going to come to the 2 of you, if I may. And you've got such a learning. You've been immersed in Torah. You've got spark and energy. You're gifted with children and gifted with all ages of people. You've immersed yourself in a community which is huge and perhaps overwhelming. You've taken that on with spirit, with grace, with humor, and with enormous courage, and with love of Judaism. And I want to say, vichunecha. May God make God's presence shine upon you and within you and give you grace. And although that suggests that God looking down, I think of it as the sacred that is so prevalent within you, actually shining up through all you do, through all you say, through all your work. And may that light be with you because you have it. May it grow in you, and may it bless you, may it guide you. Thank you. Thank you. The whole of this community who so care for our Judaism, all of us on the shared journey. May God lift up God's presence among us and give us and all Israel particularly in these difficult times, and all the world, shalom. Doesn't mean total agreement, it means the creativity of difference, of being together, of walking forward, and ultimately of harmony. May God give us all shalom. Amen. Amen.
Participated today. So many wonderful words have been said about Jonathan that represent how we as a community are feeling. And nonetheless, won't be the same without you, Jonathan. We wish you and your family joy and fulfilment in the next chapter, and this will always be your home.
Thank you.
A few thank yous. We want to thank everyone who's made today possible. The Farewell Committee, Debbie Bloom, Nicholas Brill and Lindsay Wittenberg. Our staff team, especially to Lucy and Joanne and Josh. All of the volunteers, and in particular today, our security professionals and the CS team. So, we would like you to please stack the chairs as quickly and efficiently as you possibly can. We hope that you will stay and linger and be in the community together a little bit longer, and we'll bring out some delicious refreshments for you. Thank you.
Thank you.